Navigating the early stages of a connection can feel like decoding a complex puzzle, especially when a man starts developing genuine feelings that he isn't quite ready to face. When a man senses that his emotional walls are beginning to crumble, fear often takes the driver's seat. Whether he is healing from past heartbreak, guarding his fierce independence, or simply terrified of the vulnerability that comes with true intimacy, his immediate instinct is to regain total control. This creates a confusing psychological tug of war. His heart pulls him closer to you, while his mind desperately scrambles to build emotional fortresses. The resulting behavior is a perplexing mix of hot and cold signals that can leave you feeling incredibly confused, anxious, and constantly second-guessing your worth. He might treat you like a priority behind closed doors, only to pull back drastically the moment things start feeling too real or serious. It is crucial to understand that this distant behavior is rarely a reflection of your value or your desirability. Rather, it is an internal battle he is fighting against his own growing affection. He resorts to calculated boundaries, careful communication patterns, and strict behavioral rules to convince both you and himself that he remains completely unaffected. Recognizing these subtle, protective defense mechanisms is the key to understanding the hidden truth behind his actions. He isn't necessarily pulling away because he dislikes you. In fact, it is often the exact opposite. He is running because the depth of what he feels scares him. By breaking down the specific signs of this emotional resistance, you can see past the mixed signals, protect your own heart, and clearly identify whether he is genuinely unavailable or simply trying hard not to catch feelings. 1. The sudden hot and cold communication pattern. One day he floods your phone with engaging texts, and the next he completely vanishes into thin air. This erratic behavior is a classic defense mechanism used to regulate emotional proximity. When he feels himself drifting too close or getting overly attached, fear kicks in, prompting him to abruptly pull back to regain his sense of control. He creates intentional distance to cool down his rising emotions, only to reappear once he feels safe again. This constant fluctuation between intense warmth and sudden, freezing isolation keeps you guessing, but it is actually an internal battle. He is desperately trying to balance his genuine desire to connect with his overwhelming fear of vulnerability, resulting in a frustrating, unpredictable cycle of communication. 2. He strictly avoids deep or emotional conversations. Whenever the discussion veers toward personal feelings, future plans, or relationship dynamics, he masterfully steers it back to superficial territory. He will quickly change the subject to sports, work, pop culture, or casual jokes to keep an emotional barrier intact. By keeping conversations strictly light and surface level, he ensures that you never get a true glimpse into his inner world. He knows that sharing fears, dreams, or vulnerabilities builds a powerful emotional bridge that is incredibly difficult to break. To protect himself from catching deeper feelings, he treats your interactions like a casual hangout rather than a meaningful partnership. This deliberate emotional avoidance allows him to enjoy your company while successfully dodging the intimacy required to form a serious bond. 3. He limits eye contact during intimate moments. Eye contact is a profound catalyst for emotional intimacy, often revealing the unspoken truths that a person is trying desperately to hide. When you are sharing a close, quiet moment, he will noticeably look away, focus on his phone, or scan the room instead of holding your gaze. He understands that looking deeply into your eyes makes him intensely vulnerable and could easily expose his growing affection. By breaking eye contact, he creates a subtle but highly effective psychological barrier that prevents a deeper, romantic spark from igniting. It is a conscious effort to keep the interaction purely physical or casual, ensuring that his eyes do not accidentally betray the hidden emotions he is working so incredibly hard to suppress. 4. Keeping plans strictly casual and last minute. You will rarely find him scheduling a formal date with you days in advance, as that implies a high level of priority and romantic commitment. Instead, he prefers spontaneous, last-minute invitations or casual hangouts that require minimal effort and zero forward planning. By refusing to lock in future plans, he convinces himself that the relationship remains entirely uncomplicated and completely under his control. This approach allows him to fit you into his schedule only when it is highly convenient, avoiding the emotional weight that structured dates carry. It is a strategic way to keep you at arm's length, ensuring the dynamic feels entirely breezy and temporary, rather than turning into a serious, routine partnership. 5. The no staying over rule. Once the evening ends or intimacy is over, he will gently ensure that someone heads home, firmly avoiding the traditional morning after routine. He might make polite excuses about an early morning work meeting, a demanding gym session, or simply needing a good night's sleep in his own bed. Waking up together, sharing breakfast, and lounging in pajamas represents an undeniable level of domestic intimacy that he is terrified of experiencing. Sleeping over blurs the distinct line between a casual fling and a real, committed relationship. By enforcing a strict no-staying over policy, he successfully avoids these comfortable, cozy moments that naturally foster deep emotional attachment, keeping the boundaries of your connection incredibly clear and completely compartmentalized. 6. He introduces you as just a friend. When you cross paths with his acquaintances, colleagues, or casual buddies, he is incredibly quick to use the friend label. He will introduce you by your name alone, or explicitly state that you are just a pal, completely bypassing any romantic undertones. This public labeling is a calculated move designed to set firm social boundaries and manage external perceptions. By defining the relationship so casually to the outside world, he reinforces that same boundary in his own mind. He desperately avoids terms like girlfriend, or even the girl I'm seeing, because those titles carry significant weight and cultural expectations. Keeping you firmly in the friend zone publicly helps him suppress his internal romantic urges, keeping the entire dynamic safely categorized as strictly platonic. 7. He mentions other women or keeps the focus on dating around. He will casually bring up other women, past relationships, or the general dating scene during your conversations to keep things firmly detached. He might mention a dating app match, compliment a celebrity, or offer unsolicited advice on your own romantic life. This behavior serves as an active smokescreen to hide his true feelings and signal that he is still a free agent. By constantly reminding you that he is independent and exploring his options, he tries to cool down any growing expectations you might have. It is an intentional strategy to convince both you and himself that he is not emotionally invested in what you share. This tactic keeps a protective buffer between you, ensuring things never feel exclusive. 8. Pulling back. Overly after a really great date. After an incredibly close fun or romantic date where the chemistry was undeniable, he will suddenly go completely radio silent. You might expect a sweet follow-up text, but instead, you get hours or days of absolute nothingness. This intense withdrawal happens because the sheer enjoyment of the date scared him into reality. Experiencing genuine joy and a deep connection with you makes him realize exactly how vulnerable he is becoming. To counteract that sudden surge of affection, his defense mechanisms activate, forcing him to isolate and reset his emotional boundaries. He uses this abrupt period of isolation to detach, sober up from the romantic high, and convince himself that he is still perfectly safe and independent. 9. He avoids any form of public display of affection, PDA. While he might be incredibly affectionate, warm, and attentive behind closed doors, his entire demeanor shifts completely the moment you step out into public. He will actively avoid holding your hand, putting his arm around you, or sharing a quick, playful kiss in front of others. This sudden physical distance is an intentional effort to keep the relationship hidden from public scrutiny and judgment. To him, engaging in public affection represents an open acknowledgement of a romantic bond and a validation of partnership. By keeping his hands to himself outdoors, he keeps the relationship strictly compartmentalized and unofficial. It is a visual boundary, designed to protect his freedom and stop any rumor mill from spinning out of control. 10. Deflecting sweet or romantic comments with humor. If you ever offer him a heartfelt compliment, express genuine appreciation, or hint at a deeper romantic connection, he immediately deflects with a joke or sarcasm. Instead of accepting the warmth gracefully, he will laugh it off, make a witty remark, or playfully tease you to break the tension. This sudden use of humor is a psychological shield deployed to neutralize emotional vulnerability before it can take root. He turns a potentially serious, bonding moment into a light-hearted joke because sitting with genuine romance feels uncomfortable and risky. By refusing to match your emotional sincerity, he ensures the atmosphere stays safe, superficial and entirely unthreatening, successfully keeping his growing feelings locked away behind a barrier of laughs. 11. He puts up strict physical or emotional boundaries. He establishes rigid, invisible lines that you are simply not allowed to cross. Fiercely guarding his personal life, he might completely restrict access to certain parts of his apartment, remain vague about his work schedule, or keep his weekends fiercely independent. If you try to plan something that infringes on his set routine, he will firmly push back without offering a compromise. These strict boundaries act as a protective fortress around his daily life, ensuring you only fit into specific controlled slots. By keeping his personal world completely separate from yours, he prevents the natural integration that happens when people fall in love. It is a deliberate effort to keep his routine entirely untouched, guaranteeing he stays self-reliant and emotionally detached from you. 12. Remembering small details but pretending he forgot. He pays much closer attention to you than he cares to admit, noting your favorite coffee order, a random childhood story, or a specific anxiety you mentioned weeks ago. However, when these topics naturally surface in conversation, he will actively pretend to have a foggy memory or act like he barely recalls the details. He might say things like, "Oh, did you mention that before? I vaguely remember." This deceptive behavior is a calculated attempt to hide just how much mental space you are actually occupying. He knows that remembering the tiny details of your life betrays a high level of genuine care and deep emotional investment. To hide his growing infatuation, he feigns complete indifference to look casual. 13. He stays away from group outings with your friends or family. Whenever you invite him to a casual backyard barbecue, a birthday party, or a simple happy hour with your close friends, he always finds a convenient excuse to decline. Meeting the important people in your life represents a massive, undeniable step toward a serious relationship, and it introduces accountability. He knows that interacting with your inner circle will make him like you even more, while forcing him to face questions about his intentions. By staying far away from your friends and family, he ensures the relationship remains strictly trapped within a private, isolated vacuum. This continuous avoidance keeps the connection simple, preventing it from expanding into a real-world partnership that would be incredibly difficult to walk away from. 14. The definitive, "I'm not looking for a relationship right now" speech. This is his ultimate insurance policy, and the most obvious sign of an internal struggle. He will randomly drop this explicit disclaimer into casual conversation, usually right after a highly intimate or romantic moment. By stating clearly that he is unavailable for commitment, he convinces himself that he is completely off the hook for any emotional fallout. It is a psychological shield designed to alleviate his guilt while he continues to enjoy your presence and affection. Even if his actions, late-night texts, and warm hugs completely contradict his words, he relies on this verbal boundary to protect his heart. He tells you this so that when his feelings inevitably deepen, he can still pretend he is entirely in control.